Right, everyone, welcome back to another video on how to do a cost of supply study. This video is going to be based on the impact of the rate design. So if you've been following along through the cost of supply playlist, you would have watched the video on rate design that goes through how this tab works over here, how all of the inputs that went into the cost of supply study culminate in this step here where you design your rates. But at the end of the day, when you're designing your rates, you're designing them for your customers. And the whole goal is to balance cost reflective tariffs and affordability using mechanisms like cost subsidies and designing not just energy charges, but also demand and fixed charges as well. So once you've designed your rates, you can see I've designed my rates here, just an increase of 10%. They're kind of arbitrarily designed. You can check the tariff schedule, which I've covered in a previous video as well. And you can come on to the rate impact results year 2. This tab is useful to visualize how the rates will affect the customer based on, say, their load factor or their monthly consumption. So you can see here, you can pick from the customer categories which customer you want to view. You can see here the monthly consumption is, in this case, 274. The average in this class is 274. So you can get an idea of what the average customer will consume. So in my case, let's just say I want to put 300 kilowatt hours per month. Then I'll be able to see how the rand per month is affected by a changing load factor, and I can see that in a percentage as well. In the case of a domestic prepaid customer, this isn't that helpful because load factor doesn't really change that much across different domestic customers. However, this one can be a bit more interesting to look at. You can see that the average load factor for a domestic prepaid customer is 30%. So I can make this load factor 30%. I'm going to say that their consumption starts at 100 kilowatt hours, and then I'll see how, as their consumption increases, what their cost will increase by as well. And while these are interesting, we've decided to add a new tab, which we found to be a bit more useful. So this is called the Rate Impact Summary Year 2. And you can see this has a very similar look and feel to the tariff schedule year 2. And here it shows you for every customer category what the new rates are compared to what the previous year's rates were. Then the difference in the rates of the total average rate from the previous year. So you can see in this domestic prepaid example, there's been an increase of 32 cents per kilowatt hour total average for this customer category, and that represents a 10% increase, which we should expect because that's what we inputted. And then you can see the revenue difference from that 10%. If you go down, you'll be able to unpack it in a little bit more detail. So you come down here to this dashboard and you'll see this, you can't change this. This is pulling from the previous sheet. So you can see I've added these links here. If I click on that, I can select my customer, which I've done. And then you can also select the monthly consumption. I'm going to put that at 300 kilowatt hours for now. So you can see here, this is the consumption based on our inputs from the previous page. And you can see there's the basic charge, the demand charge, and the energy charge, and then the total average charge. And you can see how it increases according to consumption. However, the fixed charge won't increase because it's just a rand per month charge. You can see the demand charge and the energy charge increases. We can compare this to last year's tariffs where we only had basic charge and an energy charge. There was no demand charge. What you can then see is the change in rand terms on the customer's bill. The customer consumes 300 kilowatt hours a month. Their bill increases by 141 rand, which is the equivalent of 15.1%. If the customer consumes 600 kilowatt hours per month, their bill will increase by 325 Rand, which is 20%. It's just important to note here that these are arbitrarily designed tariffs, and it's not a reflection of a 10% increase. This is just dummy data, so your tariffs won't necessarily react in the same way. But it's just a good way to visualize how, for a customer category, things will change. So if I go back here and I say, let's say I pick a manufacturing and industrial customer, you'll see their consumption varies by quite a lot. So I'm going to make this 700,000 like that. You can see the load factor is closer to 50%. Let's make this also 700,000, and the increments to increase by be 1,000. Then when I come over here, you'll be able to see for manufacturing and industrial again what the charges are and how this changes. You can see in this example, my new rates don't have a demand charge or an average energy charge, just a basic charge. So it's a bit of a silly example, but you can see how the bill changes depending on what I've done. You can see the basic charge here is 146,000, whereas last year it was just 1,400. These are all things that you can play around with, and you'll go and look at your rate design dashboard. You can go to the manufacturing and industrial customers. Let's make this say 50% as an example, make that 20%. You can come back here and see how it's changed. Now there's a demand charge and energy charge, and you can see how this affects the customers. So this is a very useful tab to look at and see the actual material impact on customers. And you can use this to help inform your tariff design policies and principles, and also inform your communication with customers, helping to educate them about the new tariffs, so that when you do engage with them and you do submit your tariffs for public comments, you have some understanding of how it's going to affect your customers.